Here are the chapters for this video. It's a very long video, so you can like go through each chapter and figure out which one do you want to learn. These stitches are the foundation stitches to crochet and everything that you need to get started.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, let's have a sit down and chat. I feel like I haven't done that in a while. So, let's begin. The first thing I'm going to talk about is tools. And I'm going to be covering just basic tools that you need just to get started on your crochet journey. And let's start with hooks. So, I got this Boye hook set from like Walmart a long time ago. And it basically has all of the hook sizes that you need. This is your standard basic metal hooks, and it has everything from like a size 1 through like a size 10. I also added old hooks that I have from when I was little into this pouch too. If I'm being honest, I don't really use these small hooks that often because I don't really work with very thin, super lacy yarn. I tend to use hooks more on this side, which are bigger, and they're for like clothing, cardigans, jackets, sweaters, beanies. That hook size is perfect for it. The yarn brand that I use the most and would purchase the most because it has a good selection of colors and it's great for clothing would be this one right here, Impeccable by Loops and Thread, and this color is in Deep Forest. So I would use this yarn just for literally everything and anything, to practice and to also make orders, to make designs too. It's a weight 4 yarn and it's 285 yards, which is about 127.5 grams. It's 100% acrylic. It's soft than the other standard acrylics out there. I used to start off with Red Heart. No hate to Red Heart.
What did he say?
But I used to start off with Red Heart and I learned my lesson. It was rough. It was rough. And it was like splitting and it's not that great for clothing. So there are some good Red Heart brands out there, like the soft ones, but I would recommend using this one more because not only that it's kind of soft, but it's not that rough. It doesn't split as much as I, have experience with, and this size is good for any project. However, if you are working on, let's say you get pretty good, you start getting good at crochet and you want to do sweaters and cardigans and blankets and you want to have a lot of yarn in that color, in a specific color, whatever, this brand is my bread and butter and my baby. I love this brand so much. It's called Lion Brand Pound of Love, and I love this yarn. I purchase so many whenever it's on sale. Like this ranges from like $10.99, $11.99, and sometimes there would be sales like buy one get one free, buy one get half off, buy two get the other one free, or something like that. I would always wait for sales at Joann's or Michael's for this. But yeah, this is a pound of acrylic. It's premium. It's premium acrylic. It's different from this kind of acrylic because this is premium, so it's high quality. And sometimes you can feel it when you crochet. It feels so good and premium. Anyways, so this yarn is not only that it's a lot. It's about 1,020 yards and 454 grams. So when you're purchasing yarn, you're doing your yarn research, it's important that you know the different sizes, which I'll put right here. So different size yarns are being in the label right here with the number. So every time you purchase a yarn, there will be a number on it. This one's a weight 4, which is worsted weight, or they call it Iran weight. There's different names for these weights. So the lower the number, like a weight 1, weight 0, the thinner, like lacy thin the yarn is. The higher the number, which is like 7, 8, depending on the yarn brand, the bulkier it is, the bigger it is. And I'm going to show you guys some yarns that I have in those weights. I don't purchase a lot of the super thin ones, nor do I purchase a lot of the really bulky ones. It depends on the project, and different yarn sizes and yarn types are good for certain projects, which is important to do research in. I'll probably have another video discussing different yarns and yarn brands out there and types of yarns out there, so I'll just save that for another video. However, I'll just cover a little bit here, the basics for it. So for example, I have this 100% cotton yarn. This is a weight 4 cotton yarn. And yeah, cotton yarns are sturdy. It's rough, it's sturdy, and it doesn't stretch. So this is good for very light clothing, summer wear, perfect for the waters too. I would say it's good for some swimsuits, but some people recommend that you get some yarns that are mixed together with cotton. Like, it has to be cotton mixed with other things for it to like stretch and do well with water as a swimsuit. But yeah, this yarn is great for just about a lot of like light summer clothing. I also have the cotton yarn in a weight 3. I don't know if you guys can like see the difference in size. But yeah, this one looks a little bit thicker than the other one. So this is a weight 3, a DK weight. And I also use this for like summer clothing, very lacy, maybe some lacy swimsuits, depending on the swimsuit design. And it's good for, yeah, just like a very thin outfit. And another yarn that I have is a bulky one. I think this is super bulky. The weight 7, I believe, 6 or 7. I don't know. I have to put the brand label here. But yeah, I rolled this into a cake. And as you can see, it's very thick. I think this might be mixed with some wool. But usually, yeah, bulky weight yarns are really like good for winter projects like these. They tend to mix it with wool or some kind of mix where it makes it like soft and like fuzzy in a way. And yeah, it's good for very thick winter projects like coats, jackets, cardigans, sweaters, beanies, blankets, maybe some very thick amigurumis, depending on the design. And that's a little bit about yarn, which I will like discuss more of in another video. So another thing we're gonna cover is other tools. So for the yarn cake that I showed earlier, you should purchase, if you have it in your budget, a yarn one. So this is how I get my yarns to be in like pretty little cakes. They call these yarn cakes. And I think it's a good investment because not only that you're organizing all of your yarn better, when you have it in yarn cakes, it stacks up better, stores it better. I used to roll my yarns into balls and like I put it in a bin and I would literally dig and try to look for the yarn color that I have, and it results in a mess. So when I have it stacked up like this, it's easier to get, it's prettier, And usually when I see people selling yarn, they always put it in a cake like this, which measures better too. But yeah, this one's from Knit Picks. It's pretty affordable and cheap. I use this often. I use it for all my yarns to make into cakes. Another tool I would recommend is stitch markers. I would get these whenever I purchase tools, like extra stuff, so they will always throw in stitch markers in for me, so I'm like, okay, cool. So stitch markers are kind of like plastic safety pins to mark wherever you want your stitches to be, wherever around ends, wherever you want your buttons to be, wherever you need to mark and count your stitches, your trusty stitch marker got you. So it's perfect for, like, say you have something like this and you're like, oh my god, I need to do something on the 5th stitch. Put it in. It's like a safety pin, and that's how it works. Sometimes I would see some indie shops out there that would sell these stitch markers, and like they have their own little designs, like in metal and clay, and it's super cute. So if you want to invest in that, that'd be great too. I also see some indie shops too also sell hooks, and they design like clay for the handles, or like they make it more you know, comfortable for your hand to hold. Those are great too. Sometimes just a metal hook like this, you use it for a long time, it's stiff. But yeah, that depends on wherever you want to purchase your hooks from. Another tool I recommend would be your needle. They would also give me these for free too. They would just throw it in. So yeah, your needles are important, because what if you want to sew an applique into your project like this? You would like cut a long yarn string and just sew it in. This is called applique. An applique is when you make something like this, heart, any design, literally anything, clouds, hearts, flowers, and you want to sew it on top of your crochet project. So you need a yarn needle for that. And yeah, I also put out some videos on how to make some appliques out there, so it kind of like elevates your projects. I love using appliques. I love adding appliques to my designs, because there are some designs where I want to like add a flower to it or add a heart to it and all of that stuff. So it's important to have yarn needle for that. Another needle that you need is, well, it depends. If you have these like 1-inch plastic buttons that I have for my cardigans, and my yarn needle's too big, sometimes this is too big and it won't go into the buttonhole, so I use this, a regular sewing needle, and attach a thread in it and just put the yarn through and just like put it through the buttonhole. I'll do another video on how I attach buttons, but yeah, that should be most of the tools. Oh, this one is for my amigurumi people. So if you're making teddy bears, amigurumis, keychains, anything that requires stuffing, I suggest buying some Poly-Fil. This one's like £2. Got it on Amazon. I didn't even use all of it. It's just, I only purchased one, and then it's still not even, it's about halfway used. So if you can't afford that, I suggest using scrap yarn. And if you want to be more sustainable, yeah, I suggest using scrap yarn. Any extra yarns that you cut off the ends, keep in a bag and use that to stuff anything, stuffings, and you're using all of your wasted yarn. So that's a sustainable option. However, this Poly-Fil, it's made from recycled materials too, you know, in case you want you want this kind of filling and you don't have enough scrap yarns, then I suggest this. You can use any filling that you want, maybe I don't know, an old pillow or something. But yeah, that should be all the tools. Oh yeah, wait, one last tool. This one's the obvious one. Scissors. Don't mind these kitchen scissors. I can't find my other scissors, so this is just an example. Scissors. You can also get like those mini scissors that they use for sewing too. That comes in like the tools that you purchase. Those are great too.
Alright, now that we've covered all the tools that you need, we are going to learn the first stitch, and it's how to make a slip knot. If crochet were to have a beginning, the start of anything and everything, it's this slip knot. And another stitch called a magic ring, which I'll show you after this, but the slip knot is the most important stitch to learn. So as you can see here, I made an X around my finger and pull a loop through the X. You can always adjust this slip knot by pulling on the string to make the loop bigger or smaller. I am going to show you one more time how to make a slip knot. So you create an X around your finger and then pull a loop underneath one of the strings, and that's how you create a slip knot. Hi guys, editing me here. So I noticed that I didn't specify what hook and yarn size that I use in these videos for practice. So I use a 5.0 mm hook and a weight 4 yarn. That hook size and that yarn are pretty compatible with each other, so just to clarify that out there. Now onto a magic ring. So the magic ring is also another starter stitch, and you will need 2 fingers, and you're going to create an X with those 2 fingers, around those 2 fingers, and you're gonna need a crochet hook. So put your crochet hook underneath the right string and pull the left string right underneath the right string. Twist it into a loop, and once you twist it into a loop, yarn over and pull through that loop. So what you do here, I like to unravel that loose string just so that it's easier to pull. And you can actually put any stitch into this magic ring. People do single crochets, half double crochets, double crochets. I'm going to show you double crochets in this magic ring just so you can get like an idea of how it looks like. And magic rings are usually made into circles. You can create anything that requires a curvature in your pattern. So once you reach a certain amount of stitches that a pattern requires you, in order to join these stitches, you slip stitch it to the first stitch, and that's how you join it. And then chain 1 and cut off to fasten off, and that's how you create a magic ring with double crochets inside of it. Say you want to add another color to this row, or you want to crochet another row on this magic ring, and you want to do another color. So you bring out the second color, create a slip knot as we've learned before, and attach it to any stitch. So you place your hook under the V that you see and pull through the second color. And I'm demonstrating how you do a second row. Usually the second row is a increase, so they add 2 double crochet stitches in each stitch. So this makes you have a very even circle. And to join this row, you just slip stitch it to the first stitch. And that's how you complete this row. Chain 1 and cut off to fasten off. And that is how you do a magic ring with double crochets inside of it. I just wanted to show you guys how it looks like and what each change of color per row looks like. Alright, I might have said some stitch terms that you did not understand, like chain. So we are going to cover what a chain is. So a chain is usually after you make a slip knot, you insert your hook in the loop that you've created. And to chain, you just yarn over and pull through the loop. However, before we do that, I'm going to explain how we should hold our yarn in tension. So to control the tension of the yarn coming from the yarn cake, I put it through my sandwiched in between my middle finger and my ring finger, and with my thumb and pointing finger I use it to hold onto the crochet stitch, just to hold it in place. And this is all on my left hand, and on my right hand I hold my hook like it's a pencil and pull the yarn through the loop. So as demonstrated, it looks like this, and that's how I do a chain. And to do another chain, you just yarn over and pull through the loop again, and keep repeating this. You can create as many chains as you want. Alright, we're gonna learn how to do a slip stitch, which is one of the foundation stitches. So you need to already have a slip knot and a chain to do this, as you previously learned to get to this point. So when you're looking at a chain to begin your project, you notice that it's like a V, and there's a top stitch and a bottom stitch. You're mainly going to be crocheting in the top loop of that V. You're going to be inserting your hook right in, like in between the V and underneath that top stitch. And the loop on your hook, you're not going to crochet in the first V that you see right under it. You have to crochet in the next V. But yeah, the top loop right there you see is where you're going to be inserting your hook the most to begin any stitch or any project. So you insert your hook into the second V from your hook and make sure it's the top stitch. Anyways, yarn over and pull that loop right underneath that V stitch that you insert your hook under. And you have 2 loops, and then you're gonna pull that loop through the very first loop, which is the loop on the right, and that's how you do a slip stitch. I'm going to demonstrate this again. So in the next stitch over, you're going to insert your hook on that top loop, yarn over, pull through, it creates another loop on your hook, and then pull through that loop again on the very right, and that's how you create a slip stitch. So keep practicing it down the chains and try to get the hang of it. Do that. So when you reach the end of your slip stitch row, chain 1. That chain does not count as a stitch, it's just a turning stitch. So you flip your work over. This row, you're gonna pay attention to how the V stitches look. The first chain is not a stitch. The first V that you see right under that, loop that on your hook, is also not a stitch you're going to be working in either. You're going to be working in the next V stitch over. And to place a slip stitch, you insert your hook, push your hook right under the V, that's how you're gonna be placing your stitches in each stitch. It's gonna be right under the V, yarn over, pull through, and then pull that loop through the other loop to create a slip stitch. So to demonstrate this again, you're gonna insert your hook on the V that's facing on top. Make sure the V's are facing on top, not the V's on the sides or anything else. You're going to try to focus on the V's on top. So insert your hook, make sure you get both of those stitches on top of your hook, yarn over, pull that loop, and then pull that loop through the first loop on your hook. And that's how you create a slip stitch. Repeat this to the rest of the row, just for practice. And that's how you do a slip stitch. If you want to keep practicing, you should make a swatch just like this. And a slip stitch is very, probably one of the tightest crochet stitch out there, so it doesn't really stretch that much. But this is how it looks like when you make it into a swatch. So now that we've learned how to do a slip stitch, there's a stitch called a back loop slip stitch, and essentially you just need to have your first row of slip stitches done. Once you have your first row of slip stitches, we are going to be focusing on the V's that I pointed out last time. So with the V's, you're gonna only focus on the top, that top loop. And usually you would try to insert your hook through both of them, but you're only gonna try to insert your hook only in the back loop. Make sure the V that you're looking at is not the side, but the ones on top. And the back stitch that you're going to be focusing on is the ones on top. So after chaining one, that chain does not count as a stitch. So insert your hook into that back top loop right there. Once again, insert your hook only in that top loop, pull through that loop, and then pull through the first loop that you just made to create a slip stitch. Once again, insert your hook and then pull through the loops. I'm gonna try to demonstrate it again one more time. Insert your hook in the back stitch, pull a loop through the other loop, and that's how you do a back loop slip stitch. So just keep trying to repeat this for the rest of the row, and I'll get back to you for the next row. Once you reach the end of the row, you're going to chain one and turn. That's how you do every single row, and you're just gonna focus on that back loop, which is like the top part of the V stitch, but we call it a back loop. And just make a slip stitch in each one. Just keep practicing it until you get the hang of it. And once you keep practicing it, you've got yourself a swatch just like this. And a back loop slip stitch actually stretches better than a regular slip stitch swatch. With a back loop, it gives it more stretching room, and you can see right here that it's closely crocheted together and much longer than a regular slip stitch. Alright, we're gonna learn how to crochet a single crochet. To start off a single crochet, we're gonna start off with a slip knot. Almost every foundation stitch starts off with a slip knot, and after doing a slip knot, we are going to take our hook and start chaining. But before that, make sure you pull on your slip knot to adjust the size of the loop, and then start chaining. So to create a swatch, I just chain about 13 chains, and the chain that's right under the 13th chain, so the 12th chain, is where I'm going to start my single crochet. I am going to be inserting my hook on the very top part of that chain. So the chain looks like a V, and then the stitch that's like on top of that V is the stitch you're going to be inserting your hook in, or basically right in between the chain. So you're going to insert your hook on the next chain over, pull through. You have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops. And that's how you create a single crochet. The first row of single crochet after creating chains requires that kind of instruction, and I already taught you how to hold the tension of your yarn. So we are going to be placing more single crochets down the row. You're going to have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull those 2 loops, insert your hook in the chain, the top part of the chain, and then yarn over and pull through with 2 loops on your hook, and yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. Just keep practicing this stitch for the rest of the row so you can get a hang of how you create a single crochet. Once you finish this row, you're going to chain 1 and turn over. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch. When you are preparing the next row of single crochets, you are focusing on the single crochet, the first single crochet that is close to your hook. You are going to insert your hook right under the V that you see. Right under the V, and then pull through 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. And that's how you create a single crochet for this row. You're going to keep repeating this. To do the last stitch of this row, insert your hook in the last single crochet stitch where you see the V, insert your hook, pull through, and yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. And that's how you finish this row. If you want to do another row, just chain 1 and turn it around and repeat it. And this is how the swatch should look like. Now we are going to learn how to crochet a back loop single crochet. So with a back loop single crochet, you should already have your first row of single crochets, and you are only going to be focusing on that back loop of the V stitch that you see. If you already know this from the slip stitch, it's the same thing, just the back loop of the V stitch. You just insert your hook and then pull through with 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through, placing a single crochet. The only difference is that it's in the back loop of this crochet stitch. Do another row, chain 1, turn it over, and in the back loops only, place a single crochet in each stitch. Make sure you're only focusing on the back loop of the V looking stitch that you see, and just keep repeating this across. And this is how your back loop single crochet swatch should look like. It's actually much stretchier than the single crochet swatch. The single crochet swatch is a lot closely crocheted together. It doesn't allow for much stretching room. With a back loop single crochet, you can use it to stretch any projects. Now we are going to learn how to crochet a half double crochet. Probably one of my favorite stitches. So to start off a half double crochet, you're going to start off like any foundation crochet with a slip knot. You are going to pull on the loop of that slip knot just to adjust the loop size on your hook, and then start chaining. For this project, the swatch, I decided to chain 14 chains because 12 of that chain is going to be the swatch, while 2 of the chain is going to prepare you to do a half double crochet stitch. So you are going to skip 2 chains from your hook, and in the 3rd chain from your hook, you are going to place your hook in the middle of the chain, and you are going to place a half double crochet in that 3rd chain from your hook. With 3 loops on your hook, after yarning over and pulling through, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And to do the next half double crochet stitch, you're going to yarn over in the next chain, insert your hook, pull through with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Repeat this for the rest of the row, and I'll get back to you on how to do the 2nd row. To prepare for the 2nd row, you are going to chain 2. This chain 2 prepares your half double crochet stitch, and it does not count as a half double crochet stitch. So you're only going to be focusing on every half double crochet stitch that you've made from your previous row, and you see that there's a V looking pattern on top and a V looking pattern on the side. You're only going to be focusing on the V pattern that is on top, not the sides. And you're going to insert your hook right in between the two V stitches on top and the V part in the middle. You're just going to be inserting your hook right in the middle of that V on the sides, but it's going to be right under the V's on top. yarn over, pull through, and with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that's how you do a half double crochet on the second row. Repeat this with the second stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. You gotta just keep practicing it to just get the hang of this stitch. I can try to describe it as much as I can, but sometimes just being able to practice it will get you an idea of how this stitch works. To place the last stitch, make sure you're focusing on the last half double crochet stitch, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Don't confuse the chain 2 as a stitch, and just keep practicing that. You know you're doing a half double crochet when you see kind of like a line or a row of like stitches, and that's how the swatch looks like. Now on to learning how to do a back loop half double crochet. This is also one of my favorite stitches. So you need to already have a row of half double crochets done. Chain 2, and we are going to be focusing only on the back loops of the V looking stitch on top. To get a closer look, you are going to be only focusing on the V stitches on top rather than on the sides. As you can see, it's going to be the back or the top part of this like V looking stitch. I'm trying to point it out with my hook. So yeah, what you're going to do is yarn over, put your hook through the first half double crochet stitch that you've made, so the top part of that, so the top V part of that, and in the back loop insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. To do the next stitch, you are going to yarn over, insert your hook in the back V stitch, and then pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. Keep repeating this for the entire row until you reach the last stitch. Make sure you are not mistaking the chain 2 from the previous row as a stitch when placing that last stitch. I always make sure that once doing the last half double crochet from the previous row, I chain 2 and I turn it over and not try to use that chain 2 as a half double crochet stitch. And to do the next row, you're just going to do the same thing, only focusing on the back loops and placing a half double crochet. Once finished with this row, this is how it looks like. You kind of see the V stitches kind of like sticking out on the sides, and that's how you can tell you're doing this back loop half double crochet. This is what a swatch looks like. I like it because it has that knit look on the sides, and it's really great for ribbing. And you can tell if you're doing just a regular half double crochet when it's just one line as opposed to a back loop. Alright, now on to the next stitch, which is a double crochet. To start off a double crochet, you have to start off with a slip knot like usual, just like almost every foundation stitch, and you are going to be chaining once you've adjusted the loop of that slip knot onto your hook. You're going to be chaining about 14 chains. Like I said in the previous swatch, 12 of those chains is going to be the swatch, while 2 of those chains is just going to prep your stitch for a half double crochet. You are going to yarn over, and in the 3rd chain from your hook, you're going to be skipping 2 chains, like I said, to prep your stitch. The chains are meant to prep longer stitches like half double crochet and double crochet when doing every row. So on the 3rd chain from your hook, as you're counting, you are going to be inserting your hook in between that chain after you yarn over. So you make sure you yarn over to prep a double crochet. And then pull through with 3 loops now on your hook. Make sure you are holding your tension the way I've taught you before, with your thumb and pointing finger holding the crochet project, while your middle finger and your ring finger is holding the yarn in between it to control the tension. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops only, as demonstrated here. Only the first 2 loops, and now you have 2 loops on your hook. And yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops on your hook, and that's how you do a double crochet. To do the next stitch over, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook in the chain, pull through the first 2 loops, and then pull through the last 2 loops, and that's what makes a double crochet. Keep repeating this to the rest of the row of chains that you have, and I'll meet you back with how we do the 2nd row. To do the last double crochet of this row, insert your hook in the last chain, pull through the first 2 loops, and then pull through the second 2 loops. To prepare for the next row, you are going to chain 2, and that chain 2 does not count as a double crochet. Remember that. When you turn it over, the chain 2 does not take up space of the previous double crochet of that row. If anything, it preps your first double crochet of the next row. So you are going to be focusing on, like I said in the previous other stitches, the top V part of this double crochet. So on the top of the double crochet, you can see that there's the top part of it where it has like a V looking stitch, and under that V stitch is like an opening for you to insert your hook in. With a closer demonstration here, you see the V, and then you are going to insert your hook right underneath that V. Make sure you're already yarned over. So you're going to yarn over again and pull through. With 3 loops on your hook, you are going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops, and that's how you do a double crochet for this row. Repeat it with the other stitches. So yarn over, insert your hook right underneath the 2 V lines, pull through the first 2 loops, and then pull through the second 2 loops, and just repeat the rest of the row. And to do the last stitch of this row, insert your hook on the last double crochet stitch. Make sure you are not confusing the chain 2 as a stitch. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops and then the last 2 loops. And that's how you complete this row for double crochet. If you want to do another row, just chain 2 and do the same thing. So I just did another row and I'm going to show you again how I did that last stitch. Make sure you're not confusing that last 2 chains as a stitch. I find that's how I keep the sides less loose and more tightly crocheted. And this is how your swatch should look like for a double crochet swatch. It works up pretty fast, and it's probably the easiest stitch for everyone to do for their projects because it works up so fast. And it's probably the most popular stitch there is because of how quick it is to create projects with it. Now on to learning how to do a back loop double crochet. So it's the same concept as any other back loop stitches that we've learned, and the closest I can relate this technique to is actually a back loop half double crochet, only that this time you are doing a double crochet in the back loops. So you should already have a row of double crochets done already, and to start a back loop, just chain 2, turn over. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch, by the way. And focusing on the top V stitches that you see, that's the top part of these double crochet stitches. Yarn over, insert your hook only in the back loop of that V looking stitch. Yarn over, pull through with 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops. Repeat the same thing again to the next stitch. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops and pull through the second 2 loops. But this time you're making sure you're inserting your hook in the back loops only. To do the last stitch of this row, make sure you're not confusing the chain 2 as a stitch and only focusing on the last double crochet stitch. You can tell it's the last one when you see the last V looking stitch on top of it. And in the back loops only, pull through the first 2 loops and then pull through the second 2 loops. And that completes this row. So if you want to do another row, all you have to do is just chain 2. Don't confuse the chain 2 as a stitch, and repeat the same thing that I already demonstrated to you. To do the last stitch of this row, like I said before, only focus on the last double crochet stitch and place a double crochet in the back loops only, and that's completing your row. This is how a swatch looks like for a back loop double crochet. As you can see, they're kind of like ridges between every 2 rows. You kind of see some kind of ridge going on, and it's pretty good for ribbings, any project that requires some ribbing and stretching. I would say any back loops stretches the stitch pretty well, and that's how you do a back loop double crochet. Now on to a treble crochet. It's usually abbreviated as TR or TC. With a treble crochet, it is just basically building on top of your double crochet, and we are going to start off with a slip knot as always, to just begin this swatch. I don't know how many times I'm gonna keep demonstrating how to do a slip knot with you guys, but here's how you do a slip knot again. And the beauty about doing a slip knot is that you can adjust the loop on your hook for the size. So you're going to chain, I would say chain 15, because 3 of those chains you are going to use it to prep your treble crochet. You are going to be skipping 3 chains from your hook, and in the 4th chain is where you're going to begin your treble crochet. So to do a treble crochet, you're going to yarn over twice, and in the 4th chain you are going to insert your hook in that chain. Yarn over, pull through, and you have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through the second pair of 2 loops. And then yarn over and pull through the last pair of 2 loops. And that's how you do a treble crochet. Let me demonstrate it again in the next stitch. So yarn over twice, in the next chain over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, pull through the second pair of 2 loops, and then pull through the last pair of 2 loops. So you're going to be pulling through 2 loops like 3 times. Yarn over twice and repeat it in the rest of the row, pulling through the first 2 loops, the second 2 loops, and then the last 2 loops. To do the last stitch, you're going to yarn over twice, insert your hook, pull through the first 2 loops, pull through the second 2 loops, and then pull through the last 2 loops. And that's how you do your first row of treble crochet. It's a pretty tall stitch. So to do the next row, we are going to chain 3 to prep your treble crochet. Turn over, and like I said before, we're going to only be focusing on the top part of each treble crochet stitch, which is like the V as an indicator of the top part of that stitch. You're going to be inserting your hook right under that V looking stitch by yarning over twice, insert your hook, pull through the first 2 loops, the second 2 loops, and then the last 2 loops. And that's how you do the second row of trebles. Make sure you're not mistaking the chain 3 as a stitch. You're going to keep repeating this pattern until you get the hang of it. Keep practicing your swatches. That's all I have to say when trying to learn how to crochet. You won't get it right the first time. It takes time to really get used to how to hold your tension, how to hold your hook, how to hold your yarn, and getting familiar with what each foundation stitches are. And this is actually considered the last foundation stitch for you to learn, which gets pretty easy after this, honestly. And that's your completed row. if you want to do another row, all you have to do is just chain 3, and that chain 3 does not count as a stitch, remember that. And this is what a swatch looks like for a treble crochet. It works up really fast, however it leaves a lot of like space and holes if you prefer that kind of like see-through kind of mesh type of stitch. This is the stitch for you, and it works up pretty fast. Now on to learning how to crochet a back loop treble crochet. So we are almost done actually. So you should already have a row of treble crochets already done. And we are going to be focusing on the second row, which is where the back loop treble crochet starts to come in. You are going to chain 3, turn your work over, and just like any previous back loop instruction, we are only going to be focusing on the back loops only. So yarn over twice in the back loop, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops, and yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. Yarn over twice in the back loops only, pull through the first 2 loops, the second 2 loops, and the last 2 loops. Keep repeating this for the rest of the row. Make sure you are not confusing the chain 3 as a stitch. And this is how the swatch for back loop treble crochet looks like. You can kind of see some ridges forming. It looks a little bit different from a regular treble swatch, but yeah, that's how a back loop treble looks like. So there's actually more stitches beyond a treble, and it's showed here. I've made all of the stitches into one swatch, and as you can see, beyond the treble it keeps continuing to increase, and to do this you just keep yarning over more on your hook. Just keep adding more yarn overs and pulling through every single 2 loops, and you can achieve a taller treble stitch. We are going to learn how to increase and decrease for stitches between a single crochet all the way to a treble. So starting off with a decrease single crochet, you should already have your chain, and to decrease in a single crochet you insert your hook in the chain, pull through, and you're not going to do anything else but insert your hook in the next chain over and pull through. Now that you have 3 loops on your hook, you're gonna yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. That's how you do a decrease in single crochet. In abbreviation patterns for crochet, when people want to talk about decreasing in single crochet, they usually say single crochet 2 together, and I'll put up the abbreviation for it. But yeah, you're pretty much just single crocheting 2 single crochets together. That's how you do a decrease. So you're going to just place regular single crochets down the chain, and I'm going to show you how to decrease at the end of this row. To decrease at the end of this row, you're going to make sure you have 2 chains left and insert your hook in those 2 chains. With 3 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through, and that's how you decrease at the end of a row. And then chain 1 and turn over. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So to keep decreasing in every row, you are going to insert your hook into the stitch that you've made, yarn over and pull through, and then insert your hook in the second stitch that you've made, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, and that's how you keep decreasing at the end of every row. and I'm going to show you again how to decrease at the end of this row. To decrease at the end of this row, make sure you have 2 stitches left, and you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, insert your hook on the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that's how you decrease at the end of this row. To keep decreasing, just chain 1 and turn over, and make sure each stitch that you do, you're single crocheting them together. And this is how it looks like when you keep decreasing at the end of every row. It becomes a triangle. You can see how the decreases causes everything to go inward to form a triangle when you decrease in every row. And it's cool to just, know that skill and keep practicing at it. So now we are going to focus on how to increase. So basically, to increase, you are going to insert your hook in the next chain over and add 1 single crochet, and in that same chain add a second single crochet. Basically, increasing is just adding 2 of the same stitches in each stitch or chain. So you know how usually you just add 1 single crochet in each chain? Well, increasing is just adding 2. And if you want to experiment, you can always add maybe 3 single crochet stitches, maybe 4. It's really up to you, but just know that an increase, it usually requires 2 or more single crochets in the same stitch. And I'm going to show you how it looks like at the end of this row when you increase. So to increase, make sure there's 1 chain left and add 2 single crochets into that chain. And that's how you do an increase. If you want to do it on the next row, chain 1, turn it around, and in that first stitch, just add 2 single crochets into that stitch. And that's how you do an increase. And this is how it looks like when you continuously increase on the ends. You can start to see how it stretches out. And that's how you do an increase for single crochet. Pretty simple. So this is how you do a decrease for a half double crochet. So for a half double crochet, pretty much you're just gonna half double crochet 2 together. Whenever you're reading patterns, they would write it down like that with the abbreviations of the stitch that you're going to use and whether to increase or decrease. Remember how 2 chains prep you for a half double crochet? So you're going to be skipping 2 chains here, and in the 3rd chain from your hook, you are going to be placing a half double crochet, except you're only going to yarn over and pull through and leave the 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, and in the next chain over, pull through, and you're gonna have 5 loops on your hook. So you're basically gonna combine all of these loops by yarning over and pull through all 5 loops. That's how you decrease with a half double crochet. So to show you again, in the 3rd chain from your hook, you're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and then in the next chain, pull through. Then yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. That's how you do a decrease. So for the rest of the chains, just add regular half double crochets, and at the end I'll show you how to do a decrease half double crochet. So to decrease, make sure you have 2 stitches or 2 chains left over, and you are going to yarn over and pull through, and then in the next chain yarn over and pull through as well. I'm literally struggling to get that hook through that last chain. But okay, yes, we pulled through. So you should have about 5 loops on your on your hook. And you're gonna yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. That's how you do a decrease at the end of this. Chain 2 and prepare for the next row on how to decrease. So for this row, you're going to chain 2. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch. And in that first stitch, you're going to yarn over right under that V, pull through, and then yarn over again. And then in the next stitch, right under that V, pull through. You're going to have 5 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. Here's me demonstrating it again on the next stitch over on how to decrease. Basically, you're just half double crocheting 2 together. But yeah, just place a half double crochet in the rest of the row, except leave the last 2 stitches for a decrease. With the last 2 stitches on this row, just yarn over, pull through, and in the next stitch over, yarn over and pull through, and then pull through all 5 loops. That's how you decrease at the end of this row. Just keep repeating this until you get the hang of it, how to decrease. And this is how it looks like with a half double crochet decrease. As you can see, the sides decrease into a triangle. It looks like a Dorito, yes, but yeah, that's how you do a decrease. To do an increase, just have a row of half double crochets ready and chain 2, and in that first stitch you're just going to be placing 2 half double crochets in that same stitch. That's all that it is, just increasing by just adding 2 half double crochets in that first stitch. So yarn over, place your half double crochet, and then yarn over and add another half double crochet in that same stitch. And then add a half double crochet in each stitch across, and I'll show you how to do an increase at the end of this row. Alright, to do a half double crochet increase at the end, make sure you have 1 stitch left over and just add 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. And that's how you do an increase. If you want to repeat it with the next row, just do the same thing. Chain 2, that chain 2 does not count as a stitch, and just add 2 half double crochets in 1 stitch. And that's how you do an increase. And this is how it should look like. You can see the increase happening at the ends of this swatch. And that's how you do a half double crochet increase. Just keep practicing it, and maybe you can incorporate this into any pattern or design that you have in mind. And now moving on to doing a decrease for a double crochet. So it's pretty much the same thing. In the 3rd chain from your hook, you are going to be placing your double crochet, except you are going to yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops only. Yarn over, and in the next chain over, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops only. And with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. That's how you do a double crochet increase. So one more time. So yarn over, and in the 3rd chain from your hook, pull through, and only pull through the first 2 loops. Yarn over, and in the next chain over, pull through the first 2 loops, and then with 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3 loops. Place double crochets along the rest of the row, and make sure to leave 2 chains at the end so I can show you how to do a decrease. So with 2 chains at the end, you're just going to yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops of the next chain, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to decrease. So to demonstrate this, in the next row, the chain 2 does not count as a stitch. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, and then pull through the first 2 loops, and then pull through all 3 loops. And that's how you do a decrease for double crochet. And this is how a decrease for a double crochet stitch looks like. I got a swatch right here for you. It's very clear how the decrease looks like since it's a long stitch. And yeah, just keep practicing at it and you can incorporate this into any design. So to increase, it's pretty much the same thing. In the 3rd chain from your hook, you're going to add a double crochet, and then add another double crochet in that same chain. And that's how you do an increase. You just pretty much just add 2 double crochets or more in 1 chain or stitch. And just keep practicing this. At the end of this row, just leave 1 chain left and just add 2 double crochets at the end of this row. And that's how you do an increase for double crochet. And this is how it looks like when you have increases on both sides. It will increase pretty fast actually if you keep adding more rows, and the increase will get really noticeable. But yeah, that's a technique for how to do an increase for a double crochet. Now moving on to a treble crochet on how to decrease it. Just practice with a row of treble crochets first, and then I'm going to show you how to do a decrease. So chain 3, yarn over twice, and in the first treble stitch, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, and then pull through the second 2 loops. Instead of pulling over the last pair of 2 loops, leave that and then yarn over twice. Do the same thing to the next stitch, and then with 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3 loops. So yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, the second 2 loops, yarn over twice, and then pull through the first 2 loops, the second 2 loops, and then with 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3 loops. That's how you do a treble increase. So to do the end of this row, make sure you have 2 stitches left, yarn over twice, insert your hook into that stitch, pull through the first 2 loops, the second 2 loops, yarn over twice again, pull through the first 2 loops, the second 2 loops, and with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that's how you do a decrease at the end of this row. If you want to keep practicing each row for your swatches, yeah, practice the decrease on every row so you can get the hang of it. And that's how you do a decrease for a treble crochet. And this is how it should look like when you keep decreasing at the end of every row for a treble crochet. Yeah, it's very elongated. It's very clear how the increases look like, since the treble crochet is pretty much a very long stitch. So yeah, once you keep practicing, your swatch should look like this. So to do an increase, you pretty much just add 2 treble crochets in the same stitch. In this case, you're going to keep adding it to the ends of the stitches, like the first and the last stitch. Just add 2 treble crochets at the end, and that's how you do an increase. And to increase the end of this row, just add 2 treble crochets in the last stitch, And that's how you do an increase for treble crochet. You can see the swatch starting to stretch out, and the more rows you add, the more obvious it will be. So you can just keep practicing that stitch on your swatch, and you should have a very large increase with your treble crochet since it's a very long stitch. Alright, we're gonna learn how to change colors. So say you got a row like this. It's a row of half double crochets. To finish off a row, you just chain one and cut off a tail. Make it pretty long. If it's too short, it's not gonna be secure. So cut off a long tail like this, and then pull it through and tighten it. That's how you end any row of color or any project that you want to end. And say, for example, you want to change colors. You want to add another row of colors. So you're going to flip your work over. That's how you're going to work as if you're continuing on this crochet row. However, you're going to change the color and say I have this green color that I want to add. I'm going to make a slip knot and attach it to the first stitch of this row. So you pretty much insert your hook in the first stitch and then grab onto the slip knot that you've made with your hook. Bring it under the stitch. So there are two methods. You can either leave this tail at the end and sew it in later, or you can crochet it into the project. So what you're going to do is chain on top of that stitch, chain 2 or chain 1, whatever stitch you're trying to do. I'm going to do a double crochet into that first stitch. The chain does not count as a stitch, and I'm also going to show you what it's like to crochet the ends into the project. So yeah, every time you insert your hook into a stitch, make sure you're kind of like crocheting over that loose end that you've just made from cutting off from the previous row, and pretty much when you crochet you kind of like hide it in the stitch. I usually do this since I'm too lazy to weave in my ends by sewing it, but this is one method. And just finish crocheting into this row. I'm going to show you the other method, which is sewing it in. Alright, so say you want to change colors again after this row. So you chain one and cut off a tail so you can fasten it off. Make sure the tail is like long enough. If it's too short, it won't be secure. And then pull that string through, and that's how you end a row with a color. Alright, so for the third row, say you want to attach another color, this purple color. You're going to attach it to the first stitch. Make sure that the chain that you've made is not a stitch. And yeah, chain one and add a single crochet. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to crochet, but the green tail end that you cut off, I'm going to try to sew it in, which is another method of how to weave in this end. Alright, so we ended this row and cut off a tail as well for the green and the purple. And I'm going to show you by taking a yarn needle and weaving it in. So you take one end insert it into your yarn needle and try to just poke through pretty much any stitch to hide it. Like when you pull your yarn needle through any stitch of the loops, you're pretty much poking it through the middle part of each stitch, and that's how you're able to hide it better. And this method is actually way more secure than crocheting it into the stitch, but it's time consuming and a lot of people actually really hate weaving in their ends. I also don't like weaving in ends like this too, especially if it's a large project that you're working on that requires so much sewing ends. I always end up preferring just crocheting it as I go so I can save time. However, if you have the patience and if you want to make your project more secure, I suggest sewing it in like this and cutting off any excess tails. Alright, let's say you want to change colors, and you want to change colors like right in the middle of your project. So for example, let me just use this yellow yarn and attach it to make a new row. And in this row, I'm just going to do some double crochets, and right in the middle of the project, I will start changing the color. Alright, say you want to change right in the middle of this row into a purple color. So I'm going to take the purple yarn and make a slip knot. Instead of finishing off this double crochet of this stitch, I attach the slip knot of the purple color and finish off this double crochet using the purple color. And then I crochet the rest of the row using the purple yarn, and the yellow color as well as the tail ends I crochet it into the crochet row. Usually people would try to cut off a long tail and then weave it in at the end of the project, but I like to crochet it into the row to save time. So yeah, you're going to crochet it into the row. Make sure you adjust everything neatly and make sure there's no like loose loops going on, and make sure each tension of each stitch is good. And you can cut off a long tail of the yellow yarn to finish off this row. I mean, there are two methods you can try to do. You can either move it to the side and then weave it in, or you can crochet it into the stitch. I'm going to demonstrate by crocheting the other ends while leaving one end out, so you can see what it's like to sew in that end after finishing this row. So after finishing this row, you can use a yarn needle and just try to sew it into the loops of the row. That's how it looks like. It should be very secure. Anything loose, you can cut it off actually. And to finish off this row, just chain one and cut off a tail so you can sew that in as well. Alright, let's add another color. Let's add a green to this row. And for this row, since the previous row we did double crochet, we're going to do a half double crochet in this row. So I'm going to show you how to change colors with a half double crochet. Usually when changing colors, you just, instead of finishing off that stitch with a yarn over and pull through wherever you are at in that stitch, to finish it off, always make a slip knot with another color and just use that color to finish off that stitch, and then start the rest of the row with that new color. So let's say for a half double crochet you're supposed to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, right? So instead of pulling through all 3 loops just like that, we are going to change the color to orange and then pull through all 3 loops with the orange color. So you made a slip knot with your orange, attach it with your hook, and then pull through all 3 loops of the green. And that's how you change color with a half double crochet. Start half double crocheting the rest of the row with the orange color. And with the green, you can either crochet into the stitch or just cut off and weave it in. Either way, it works. And that's how you do this row of half double crochet. So chain 1 and cut off a tail so you can sew it in. For this row, we are going to do a single crochet row using the purple yarn. So you attached it, and in that first stitch place a single crochet and continue to place a single crochet until you reach the desired area where you want to change colors. So with a single crochet, it's you yarn over and pull through 2 loops, right? So instead of yarning over and pulling through 2 loops with that same color, you're going to yarn over and pull through with a different color. Make sure there's 2 loops on your hook. Make another slip knot with another color and attach that slip knot to finish off that single crochet stitch. And then start crocheting the rest of the row with the new color. I like to crochet the purple yarn also into the single crochet of the new color, so I don't have to like cut it and weave it in at the end. Just cut any loose strings, weave it in, and that's how you change colors. So previously I already taught you how to weave in ends and fasten off, but I'm gonna teach you how to join crochet pieces together. Since you already know how to weave in ends and fasten off, so we already worked ahead. There are different methods to how to join pieces together. You can use a yarn needle and sew it in, which is one method. You can use a hook and either slip stitch it or single crochet it together. I'm gonna go through all the different methods with you guys. So my favorite or the easiest one to do is to actually crochet it together. To crochet pieces together, all you have to do is make a slip knot, line up the pieces side by side, and make sure each stitch is matching with the other stitch. Make sure it's even, and insert your hook through both pieces like this, and then attach your yarn, the slip knot that you've made, attach it to the hook, pull through both pieces with the new yarn color, and you're going to chain 1. As you can see, attaching both really puts the pieces together. You're going to chain 1, and in that same stitch you are going to insert your hook and place a single crochet, and then place a single crochet in the next stitch. But make sure you're inserting your hook in 2 panels, and that's how you join these 2 pieces together through single crochet. This method is actually pretty easy and the fastest way to join any piece together, and it's actually what I prefer as well. Once you reach the end of this row, just single crochet the last stitch together, and that's how you finish joining these 2 panels. Chain 1 and then cut off a tail to fasten off. So when you cut off a tail to fasten off, you can just weave in the ends at the end of your project or whatever. And that's how you do the single crochet joining method. I use a yarn needle to just weave in that tail end by sewing it back into the single crochet. Alright, say you want to join another piece, but this time we're going to be doing the slip stitch method. You're going to be joining the ends of these pieces that had the chain to start, and I'm going to show you what it's like to work with that end and to slip stitch it both. So you're going to attach your slip knot yarn, chain 1, and in the next stitch just slip stitch it, yarn over and pull through both loops, yarn over and pull through the loop. When you have projects that have one of the endings a chain ending, you're only working with like one side of the chain end, so that's why it looks like you have only 2 loops to work with, as opposed to like 4 loops when you're working with joining pieces that have the stitch as a top part. But yeah, to finish off this row, we're just gonna slip stitch that last one and then chain 1 and cut off a tail. Every time you're cutting off a tail, you should use a yarn needle and try to sew it in to make it more secure. Alright, so we're gonna do the last method, which is sewing in 2 crochet pieces together. So you're gonna need a yarn needle and a long string. I like to measure out how long I need to cut off some yarn to sew it in. You actually just need to measure against the 2 panels and then cut off a little bit like more excess yarn so you can always sew that back in and make it more secure. And I like to start off with one corner. What I like to do is line up the stitches together. You can see both V-looking stitches are lined up together, and the stitch I'm going to use is called the mattress stitch. So each inward stitch, you're not going to sew it in. You're going to try to only sew in the outward stitches. So the outward of the blue would be on the very left and the outward of the yellow would be on the very right. And you're only going to be trying to sew in those outward and inward stitches together, while the stitches in the middle, you're not going to sew that in. So you're going to poke your yarn needle through the out and the inward stitches and just tie the ends together. And in the next stitch, like I said, to the very left is that left stitch of the V, and to the very right is the right side of the V. You're going to insert your yarn needle through both and pull your yarn through and start sewing it back and forth. Keep repeating this, and it doesn't matter what yarn color you use because it actually hides it in. Once you finish sewing it in, all you have to do is just tie the end and then weave it right back into the crochet piece and cut off any excess yarn. And those are the different methods of how you join crochet pieces together. I hope this is very helpful for you guys. So we are going to learn how to block a crochet piece. Whenever you finish a crochet piece, you block it using water or water with a little bit of soap in there. And the reason why you block crochet projects is to help adjust the size and shape of a crochet item. Blocking helps you flat corners, straighten edges, help fix unwanted curling after you crochet a piece. It also relaxes and enhances any stitch that you've use for your crochet project. So yeah, I just take a little bin and put my crochet item in there and wash it around for a little bit, and then I use a dry towel and just dry out my crochet piece like this. And you can leave it on a dry towel to dry, air dry, or you can leave it out to hang and air dry by a window, which I am doing here.
Other tips that I have would be practice your swatches. Always keep practicing your swatches because it doesn't hurt to try. Figure out like what colors, what yarn sizes, what hook work together before doing a big project or diving into a project. I used to do that. I used to just dive into a project, and when I messed up or got the wrong hook size or whatever, I would have to start over and it would waste time. So now that what I do is make time to make swatches. Just a square like this, just to see what stitches it's good to have, what kind of yarn and hook for this I need. I also practice colors. This is a yellow gingham plaid color combo. You guys if you already watched this video, you should already know how to change colors, so you can always practice how to make colors. I do different color options out there just to like practice and see what I can make.
I don't have the talent, Bob, to do what you're doing. That's baloney. Talent is a pursued interest. In other words, anything that you're willing to practice, you can do. And this is no exception.
The last thing I want to talk about is designs, inspirations, and all of that. So, I like to draw. I'm not good at it, but I like to draw. I like to draw my designs. And I started off with just pen and paper, and I upgraded to an iPad. And in this iPad, I got this Apple Pencil that comes with it. So every time I would work on a design, I go to the Procreate app. You can use any app to draw, as whatever you're comfortable with. I use the Procreate app and just draw or write down idea designs that I want to do before I start on a project. This is just to help you save time. Draw it out, figure out what colors you want and need, practice your stitches, figure out the stitches you want and need for this, and then when you work on it, you save time and you'll make less mistakes. So this is an example of my previous collection called Dreamland that I made, and I would draw some sweaters and cardigans for it. I would write down the stitches it needs and ideas I have for it. Sometimes I don't even do all of my ideas on here because I end up changing my mind, or I end up practicing it on here and I'm like, oh, it does not work after all if I did this change to it. So for example, like this sunset cardigan, I was supposed to do a palm tree applique for it, but I end up not because I like the look of it without a palm tree, and I figured that the applique did not came out the way that I wanted it for it, so I ended up not going for that. But it's good to have an idea and reference like of what a draft design is. But yeah, as far as inspiration, I would go on Instagram, TikTok, maybe YouTube, and Pinterest sometimes. There would be so many inspirations out there, and the community feels some way about Pinterest actually. Because sometimes there would be pictures that are stolen from original creators on there, and you have to do your research. It's important to do your research into where these pictures are coming from, who is designing it, and do your research on the designer. If they have a pattern out that you know, they allow for people to buy and recreate, possibly sell. You have to like do your research, search up these designers, and it does not hurt to shoot a DM and ask them like, hey, I really like this design, and is it cool if I recreate it? And sometimes you get a yes, sometimes you get a no. Maybe you might want to sell it. You have to ask them. You have to ask them if they allow that. It's important that you mention you're gonna give credit. I think the issue is when there's no credit given and people are stealing photos, stealing designs, passing it off as theirs, then that's where a lot of issues lie. It's always important. It does not hurt to be like, oh, I got this inspiration from this, or this design and pattern came from this. It's just common courtesy. Crochet is a very special hobby for me, and I'm excited to use this YouTube channel and other platforms that I have to teach you guys how to crochet. It's very exciting because like once you really get the hang of it, you can like make anything with it. It's the most versatile like fiber art out there, and it could be anything that you dream of it to be. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you guys get started on your crochet journey and have fun with it. Alright, love you guys, bye.
And it goes a little something like